spent in a miserable way.
U.S. News. Rosemary Mariner, Pathbreaking Navy pilot and commander, is D3ad at 65. The New York Times. Rosemary Mariner, who shattered barriers when she became one of the Navy's first female pilots and the first woman to command a naval aviation squadron, and who later successfully fought for a congressional measure that lifted a ban on women serving in combat, D3ad on January the 24th in Knoxville, Tennessee. She was 60. Her husband, Tommy Mariner, a retired commander in the Navy, said the cause was ovarian cancer. When Captain Mariner joined the Navy in 1973, she was a licensed pilot and a graduate of Purdue University, where she had been the first woman to enroll in a newly created aeronautics program. She had been in most women in the Navy of the early 1970s were assigned to hospital posts or clerical jobs. But times were about. After graduating from officer candidate school in 1973, Captain Mariner was chosen for the Navy's first flight training class for women. She was among 6. After various postings, she was named commander of a Navy tactical electronic warfare squadron at Naval Air Station Point Mugu in Southern California in July 1990. The Navy was soon to face a major embarrassment. In September 9, in a reference to women being barred from combat, she told the PBS program and McNeil/Lehrer news outlet her nearly 20 years in the Navy had taught her, if you cannot share the equal risks and hazards in arduous duty, then you are not equal. And if the institution can discriminate against you, she added, then it's not a big leap for bigots to decide that, well, I can harass you and I can get away with it. Captain Mariner was a leader of the organization Women Military Aviators. In April 1993, Officer Secretary Leigh Aston lifted the restrictions on female pilots flying combat missions. Until then, when she retired from the Navy in 1997, Captain Mariner had become one of the nation's leading advocates for equal opportunity in the military. Deborah G. Douglas wrote in American Women and Flight since 1940-2005. Captain Mariner logged 17 landings on aircraft carriers and more than 3,500 flight hours in 15 different aircraft. Rosemary Ann Bryant was born on April 2, 1953, in Harlingen, Texas. Her father. As a teenager, Rosemary read books on aviation and watched planes at local civilian airports to earn money for flying lessons. In June 1990, when Captain Mariner was the executive officer, or second in command, of the air squadron she would soon command, her mother, speaking of her daughter's determination to fly, told the Los Angeles Times, I was worried because her father had been killed in an aircraft accident, but she was so determined to do it, I felt I shall hold her back. In her later years in the Navy, Captain Mariner attended the National War College in Washington, earning a master's degree in national security strategy, and served on the staff of the Joint Chiefs at the Pentagon. After retiring, Captain Mariner and her husband had been living in Norris, Tennessee. In addition to him, when Captain Mariner entered the Navy, the commanding officer of her first squadron, Captain Ray Lambert, we would get together, she was quoted as saying by the University of Tennessee in a 2017 post on its website, and if we thought something was unfair, they will let a woman land on a ship. For example, we would write a letter up the chain of command and put it on the record that we wanted that changed. But Captain Mariner saw continued obstacles facing women in the armed forces. There have been remarkable changes in the military, she said at the time. What I am still she nonetheless emphasized the quality of perseverance that had served her so well. Life can deal you a lot of curveballs, she said. You hang in there. And in tribute to Captain Mariner, the Navy was planning to conduct its first all-female flyover at her funeral service on Saturday in Maynardville, Tennessee.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park,